Hello everybody, I wanted to talk about painting waves today. I'm just putting a little bit of water on my canvas, mixing a little bit of phthalo blue with a little bit of yellow. If you add too much yellow to it, it turns green. You can see how it's green here. If I added a little bit more blue to it, it gets a more teal color. So anyway, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. A little bit more white is just a little bit dark for me. There we go. Now we have a reference point. We have a little bit of water in here, and we can go from there. A lot of people think that adding white onto your canvas gives you a wave. And technically it kind of does give you a wave, but not necessarily the case. So if I use a darker teal color underneath this, and I just went like this with my brush, you already have like a little bit of a wave there. And I'm not even really doing anything. I didn't put any white. Just by putting a little bit of contrast underneath, you have a little bit of a wave sitting there. Now, if I add a little bit of white on top, and the biggest mistake people make is they like add white all the way across. And yeah, you have a wave, it's true, but waves are really, they're broken up in nature, okay? They're broken up, which means that you can have like a little piece here, and then they kind of skip. You can go harder with the brush here like this. And what's nice is, if you put a little bit of contrast underneath the highlight here like this, it starts to look a lot more wave-like. Gives it a little bit of life. And you can add more contrast. You can have it like a little bit darker. So like here, if I wanted this to look a little bit bigger, I would just make the contrast larger. Here, I can make it smaller. Again, the biggest mistake that people make is they do one big line across, and then they have one big, line across like that. And it still works, but again, think about waves being, broken up. That really helps. And I'll put some sand in too, just to kind of show you shore waves. So let me mix a little bit of sand here. I'll put a little bit of sand underneath. There we go. And sand kind of rolls, right? It doesn't necessarily go in a straight line. So we have a little bit of sand as a reference point. And again, I'm just using a big flat brush. A detail brush is probably better. A smaller brush is probably better. But I'm used to doing kind of like any brush. So the problem is that people will go like this and they'll smash, all this color onto the shore. That's the biggest problem. And I'm going to take my original color here and I'm just going to shrink. You can always shrink stuff that's lighter with an original color. What's nice is what it's talking about breaking up. So you can break up stuff like this. See how much more natural it looks when it's broken up like that, rather than it being white all the way across. And again, if I took a little bit of a darker color underneath here, a little bit of a darker color where the sand is, it makes it pop a little bit more. So you can see where you can get a nice little wave. In a secondary wave, I can have just contrast in the back, meaning I can have just a little bit of a darker color, or I can do some white. So let's say another wave is coming in here like this. So I can go like this, maybe I just do a little, little wave underneath like this. And again, it can be bigger in the center, and maybe a little bit smaller here. Maybe it's getting ready to flip. But you can see how just having a little bit of contrast underneath here gives you perspective that, another wave is coming. Another trick that I like is, I like to put a little bit of like whitewash like on the side. And then what I do is I'll take a darker color and I'll cut into it, meaning I'll go like this, and I'll cut underneath it, and it makes it look like it's flipping a little bit. So again, I just take a little bit of white, you know, and I can have it come down like this, and then kind of come across, or put nothing, you know. And here you don't really need anything on top of it. It just looks like it's flipping. And you could have the darker contrast like underneath here. You can go like this. You could have darker contrast underneath here, and again, just looks like the wave, you know, is flipping. It's nice and soft, so you don't have to do a lot with waves. Another thing that I like with waves is that, you know, there are some waves that come onto the shore, right? So you can do like just a little pressure matters with brush. You can just go really light like this, and you can have, you know, just a little highlight of something, you know, coming onto the shore. A lot of times too, there's a lot of whitewash, you know, in here. The easiest way to do it is, you know, like this, to create like a little bit of whitewash. But what some people do to get a little bit more detail, I'm going to switch brushes to a smaller brush, something like this. A lot of times people will, you know, they do like little lines like this coming in, and they'll just kind of play. They'll have lines coming down, you know, off the wave. Lots of, you know, movement and different things that kind of transpire and happen. What's also fun too is you can add a little bit of light on a big wave. So for instance, I'm gonna wipe this out here. I've got, and you can also take your original color back in, and you can do things. You can, I call cut in between colors. So I kind of wiped everything out. So you've got your nice little wave like hitting the sand. So let's do a bigger wave. What I like to do with the bigger waves is I like to take a lighter color. So I've got my wave in here. Let's say I'm gonna have it a little bit darker. Again, using that small brush here. Want a little bit more blue in there. Boy, this brush is really fine. There we go, there's a little bit more blue. Okay, so we've got, so you could kind of like a bigger wave coming in here, right? What's nice is to take a lighter color, take your turquoise, and what you do is you highlight, as the wave is flipping, you highlight this lighter color coming in like this as the wave is flipping. So you've got this light around it. And you can go like at a little bit of a downward motion like this. So you've got this nice light around it, right? And then you've got this darker color next to it. Like this. And the lighter you go with that color, here, the lighter you go, it starts to look like it's flipping. And I'm not even adding, I'm not even doing anything to it. I'm just letting it kind of be, and you can see that it's kind of flipping. And if you wanted to, like right at the edge, like right here, You could put like a little bit of white, and maybe it starts to crash, you know, down at the edge like this. And again, if it starts to crash a little bit, you want a little bit of contrast right where it's crashing. A little bit of a darker color right underneath, like this. You don't want to get in the way of that lighter color, right? Makes it look like, you know, the wave is alive and it's crashing. And again, you know, you can definitely add like a little, you know, stronger white, you know, here to make it look like it's crashing, and maybe it continues. Here there's a little bit. But again, you don't have to have anything here like on the top. It just will naturally look like it's, you know, crashing. And again, it could, you know, you could have a little bit here, and as it builds, you know, you don't have anything. And again, this whitewashing here can shrink anything that's going on up in here, can shrink things. So you have this just nice little wave. And again, it can shrink the whitewash too, so it can shrink your lines here. So you can go back in and you can play around. So you can see, you know, what's going on there. You can see the whitewash. You can see the ones on the shore there. So that's pretty simple. Let me wipe that out. A lot of times too, we have just a little bit of contrast, like at the front, like a soft little something. So a little bit of contrast, and maybe a little bit in here. You'll notice all I'm doing is adding contrast. I didn't add anything else. I didn't add any white, but you can see you're getting like these little bits of waves, and I'm not adding any white at all to it. So it kind of gives you an idea that waves are really about, you know, contrast and highlight, contrast and highlight. And again, if I wanted to make it pop a little bit, you know, I could very lightly, pressure matters, so you don't want to go too heavy. You go heavy, you get a like a heavier blob there or whatever. So I can just go really, really light, like that. Maybe it disappears, and I go really, really light here. Maybe it disappears. And then here I've got the bigger one, so I go a little bit heavier. That's it. So you can see there where I added like a little bit of white with the contrast, you get a little wave. And they can become very realistic. You can play around and have some fun with them. It's really, really fun. Remember about the sand. The sand is really cool, but remember that as you mix and play with the sand, the further away it is from shore, you know, the lighter it gets, okay? Just remember that. And have fun, play around. You want to do different texture and things. You know, you can make little dots so you can stipple like this, and you can go, you know, maybe it's a really rough day on the shore, like this, and you've got some heavy, you know, things happening or whatever. I mean, you can have fun with it, but, you know, it can look like it's crashing too. That's called stippling, where you just like putting little dots. So you have it heavier, you can have it lighter. Just remember though, whatever you have as a highlight underneath, you want to make sure, you know, that you're adding that contrast underneath it like this, you know, just to make it pop a little bit. This is really dark just to show you an example of like what's happening. And again, you know, here too, like if this is too thick, you know, I can always shrink things, you know, and brush through them. And so again, you have kind of like a nice little wave curling. You've got that shoreline. See how I shrunk it with another color. So enjoy, have some fun, and paint some waves and practice, and join me again. You can go to gregorycopploe.com and click on paintings. You can see my professional paintings. I'm also a gallery painter, so you can see my professional paintings there. And I'm going to be doing lots more tutorials on YouTube. I run a paint and sip company called Stir Up the Paint in Seattle, Washington. And I do post some free videos that you can join me and I walk you through an entire painting, and you can have some fun with that too. So please subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.